Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Sukkah Daf Yudalid. We begin a good part of the way into the first Amud, just a line before the Mishnah. The Gemara has a bit of a gadata about the Tefillah of Tzadikim. Then we get to the Mishnah, which introduces the topic of using boards. For schach, boards that are pretty wide, how wide can they be and still be kosher schach? The Mishnah has a machlokes tanaim. The Gemara has a machlokes amaroim as to what the case of the machlokes tanaim is. Two proofs to one of the opinions of the amaroim and rejections of the proofs, and then presentation of two brises, one of each which go with each amora. And then the Gemara introduces the question of what happens if you turn the boards on their sides. On the narrow side, what is the halacha there? Machlokes amaroim, consulting another amora, and a potential proof from my prices. So first of all, let's begin. The Gemara just says one line. We had been discussing in the previous part of the Amud about pitchfork. So the Gemara says that tefillah of tzaddikim is called a pitchfork, just like a pitchfork is used to turn and move grain from one place to another in a granary. The tefillah of tzaddikim turns over Kadosh Baruch Hu's midah from midas achzarius to midas rachmanis, from the midah of strict justice to the midah of mercy. Okay, now we begin the Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses what happens if you want to use as schach, you want to use a board. So the potential problem which we will be discussing in the sugya over here is that if you use boards of wood as schach, it looks just like a house. Somebody's going to sit there, and even if it's kosher schach as far as the halacha is concerned, but it looks just like his house, and if you'll allow him to use a sukkah with regular boards on top, if it looks just like a room, he'll end up saying, you know what, I may as well sit in my regular house. Why do I have to sit here in the sukkah? That's why there's a potential problem to make a sukkah with schach made out of boards of wood, even though those boards do grow from the ground and are not makabel tuma, but that's the gzeira, that's a potential issue. So the Mishnah says it's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir if it's kosher or not. It does not specify what size we are referring to, but it does say that if you have a board which is 4 tvachim wide, you're allowed to put it on the side of the sukkah, and then you have what's called a doif and a kuma, a bent wall. If it's attached to the side of the ceiling, the side of the schach, meaning it's flush with the wall of the sukkah, so then you view it as if the wall comes up and bends into the ceiling, and that therefore is not a pasul schach. You don't view it as pasul schach to say that the wall doesn't meet the schach. You view it as if the wall bends and meets towards the schach, but you cannot sit under that part of the ceiling. So the Mishnah there seems to be saying that more than 4 tefachim wide is a problem to count it as schach, but it can be counted as wall. The Gemara will get into that. So now we have the machlokes amarim introduced by the Gemara. What is the case in which you have the machlokes tanaim? The two tanaim again are Rabbi Yehuda, who says that using boards is kosher, and Rabbi Meir, who says that using boards is pasul. The Gemara divides the width of these boards into 3 zones: less than 3 tvachim, between 3 and 4 tvachim, and wider than 4 tvachim. Now, less than 3 tvachim is less than a sheer lavud. It's less than the minimum size that's considered to be closed or non-existent. That the Gemara says just counts as regular branches. That's not considered a board at all, and that's kosher for sure. There is no possibility that that's a problem. The question is the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda in the case between 3 and 4 tvachim, or is it greater than 4 tvachim? Between 3 and 4 tvachim is greater than the sheer lavud, but it's less than the sheer reshus. The minimum size to be a room is 4 tvachim. So this is in between. Is there a machlokes there? So Shmuel says that's the case where there is a machlokes. However, greater than 4 tvachim, where it's big enough to be a room, everybody agrees we have gzeira. You're going to confuse it with your house, and people, if you allow them to sit in a sukkah made out of such schach, then they'll end up sitting in their own house. According to Rav, however, there is no machlokes at all between 3 and 4 tvachim. There, everybody agrees it's kosher. There is no possibility that there would be a gzeira there. The only machlokes is where it's greater than 4 tefachim, and that is because, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no gzeira. We don't make this gzeira altogether. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher, there's no gzeira, you'll confuse it with your house, and Rabbi Meir says we do make such a gzeira. So again, to sum up the opinions, according to Rav, the only machlokes is where it's greater than 4 tefachim, Anything less than that, everybody agrees is kosher. According to Shmuel, where it's greater than 4 tvachim is definitely pasul. Machlokes is between 3 and 4 tvachim, and less than 3 tvachim is definitely kosher, according to all opinions of all Amoraim and all Tanaim. So now the Gemara says, let's try to bring a proof. In our Mishnah, it said clearly that where you have a board that's 4 tvachim wide, you put it on the edge of the sukkah, so you're allowed to consider that part of the bed wall, you just can't sleep under it. So therefore, it's clearly pasul schach. So this clearly says that 4 tvachim wide is pasul schach. So how is that going to work? According to Rav, according to Shmuel, it makes a lot of sense. Everybody agrees that when it's more than 4 tvachim, it's pasul schach, and therefore the Mishnah can say that. So the Gemara says Rav is not going to have a problem. This Rav will say that is Rabbi Meir speaking. Rabbi Meir is the one who holds that more than 4 tvachim is pasul schach. Rabbi Yehuda would not agree with that line. He would say that that is not pasul schach. Okay, the Gemara has its second proof, and that is concerning the halacha of pasul schach in the middle of a sukkah, not touching any of the walls. Halacha over there is if you have an area of pasul schach in the middle of the sukkah, if it's 4 tvachim wide, it pasels the entire sukkah. If it's less than 4 tvachim wide, only under it is pasel, the rest of it is okay. Now, this Mishnah here says that if you have sheets, if you have 2 separate sheets, and each sheet is less than 4 tvachim wide, but they're next to each other, does that combine to a minimum 4 tvachim space that passes the entire sukkah? So the Mishnah says sheets do combine, everybody agrees to that, but boards is a machlokes. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who's a Tanakama, is not specified by name, but he's a Tanakama, 2 boards are not mitzaref. They do not combine to form a pasul space of 4 tvachim. And Rabbi Meir says that boards do combine to form a pasul space of 4 tvachim to pasul the entire sukkah. So the Gemara has 2 versions of why this is a kasha on Rav. It's definitely a kasha on Rav. The first version is the way Rabbi Meir's shita is expressed, and the second version, the kasha, is in the way Rabbi Yehuda's shita is expressed. The first version, which is the simpler one, Rabbi Meir says that 2 boards do combine to make a pasul area of 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. The Gemara says, well, then obviously we're talking about boards which are less than 4 tvachim, because we're saying they're combining to 4 tvachim. But according to Rav, less than 4 tvachim, Rabbi Meir holds is not a problem. Nobody holds it's a problem. It was only 4 tvachim and wider that Rabbi Meir said was an issue. So how are you going to explain what he means when he says that the boards combine to 4 tvachim? So Rav says the answer is that this Mishnah is not talking about a pasul space in the middle of a sukkah. The answer is that this is talking about a bent wall. It's talking about a pasul schach on the side of the sukkah, where it's a doifen akuma, it's a bent wall. And the halacha over there is that it can have up to 4 amas of bent wall before we say it's a problem and it passes the sukkah. Greater than 4 amas, you can't say a doifen akuma, a bent wall, less than 4 amas you do. And when we say that this halacha of combining, we are talking about boards that are greater than 4 tvachim, which are pasul schach according to Rabbi Meir. Do they combine to 4 amas? 4 amas is significantly more than 4 tvachim. Now, the other version of this kasha was that it's from Rabbi Yehuda's expression. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, according to the way Rav understands Rabbi Yehuda holds that there is no problem. It's kosher schach whether it is more than 4 tvachim or less than 4 tvachim. The problem then is, why does Rabbi Yehuda use the expression that the boards don't combine to pasul schach? He shouldn't say they don't combine to pasul schach. They're not pasul schach altogether, is what he should say. So the Gemara says, how does Shmuel understand that? Shmuel also has to agree that Rabbi Yehuda holds between 3 and 4 tvachim is not pasul schach. So what does it mean when he says they don't combine to pasul schach? Shmuel will have to say that when we say that they don't combine, obviously we're referring to combining to a greater share than 4 tvachim. So it's talking about combining to the share for the psul of the doifen akuma, which is 4 amas. That's how Shmuel will understand it. So it's greater than 4 tvachim, which is pasul according to Rabbi Yehuda, but it doesn't combine to a share of 4 amas. But according to Rav, that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold that any size has a psul of 4 tvachim. So what does it mean when it says not combined? So my answer is, Rav will tell you that it's lav dafka. It didn't mean not combine. Rabbi Meir used the expression not combine. Rabbi Yehuda just meant it's not pasul schach altogether. There's nothing to combine or to not combine to. He just used the expression that conflicts and contrasts with the way Rabbi Meir expressed it. The Gemara now says we have a brisa that says explicitly like Rav and a brisa that says explicitly like Shmuel. The one explicitly like Rav says that if you make a sukkah using schach out of cedar boards that are less than 4 tefachim wide, everybody agrees it's kosher, like Rav's opinion. No machlokas there. There's machlokas of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda if the boards are wider than 4 tefachim. Now, that clearly says like Rav. The Brisa just continues and it says that Rabbi Yehuda came with a taina, and he said, I remember when there was a shas sakana, when the Nachum did not allow Klal Yisrael to sit in a sukkah. And what we did was we made a sukkah on the porch out of schach boards that are more than 4 tefachim wide, so that the Nachum could not tell that it was a sukkah at all, and we sat there and everything was fine. And so you see that it's a kosher sukkah even if the schach are more than 4 tefachim wide. And Rabbi Meir, of course, answered, and he said he can't bring a proof from a shas sakana. There was no other way to do the mitzvah then, so of course there was no gzeira d'Rabbanan in a situation like that. Now we have a Brisa that says explicitly like Shmuel. It says if again you made a sukkah using boards of cedar wood for the schach, if they are more than 4 tefachim wide, everybody agrees it's possible. Less than 4 tefachim wide, that's where there's a machlokas. Here the Brisa continues, and it says that there's a situation in which Rabbi Meir agrees that it's kosher, and a situation in which Rabbi Yehuda agrees that it is kosher. The situation in which Rabbi Meir agrees is where you have a sukkah which is 8 amos wide, and you have the boards that are extending from the walls are too wide. They are wide enough to be puzzle, and they continue for quite some length from each side, extending into the center of the sukkah, leaving a space of 8 tefachim wide in the center. That 8 tefachim is the width of a board on each side of the center line. The center line would run right down the sukkah at 4 amos from each wall. Then you have a tefach from the center on each side. You have 4 tefachim from the center on each side for a total of 8 tefachim. That would be kosher because you have a minimum size of kosher schach there. It's 8 tvachim, the minimum size would be 7 tvachim, and therefore that is kosher, that's enough. Now, it's a chiddush there that even Rabbi Yehuda agrees to that, but it's a bigger chiddush that Rabbi Meir agrees. Now, what's the situation in which Rabbi Yehuda agrees? Again, here it is the Doif and Akuma, that although Rabbi Yehuda holds that it is kosher to have schach that's more than 4 tvachim wide, if you have a board which is 4 tefachim wide and it's against the wall, it's in the part of the ceiling which is flush to the wall, you can't sleep under that because that counts as a bent wall, as part of the Doif and Akuma, and therefore it's part of the wall, it's not considered schach, and you cannot sleep under that. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to discuss what happens if you take these boards that are too wide, according to whichever opinion it is that they are too wide, and you turn them on their edges. So that way you don't have 4 tefachim of width acting as the sukkah. You have very tall boards sticking up from the sukkah, but the actual schach part, what you see if you're looking up from inside the sukkah, is narrower than 4 tvachim or even 3 tvachim, depending if you hold like Rav or like Shmuel. So the Gemara says, if this works or not. Rav Huna says it's puzzle, because since these are puzzle schach, you look at them as if they're metal. You look at them as if they're things which are non-kosher for schach, no matter which way you turn them. And therefore it is puzzle. Rav Chizda and Rabbi Bar and Rav Huna say that it is kosher. Now the Gemara says when Rav Nachman came to Surah, so Rav Chizda and Rabbi Bar and Rav Huna went to visit him, and they asked him this shaila, and they were hoping that he would say like him, he would say like them, that it's kosher. So they asked him, and he said it's puzzle like Rav Huna. And then he said to them, didn't Rav Huna tell you that this is a halacha? So he explained it to them. He explained that the reason is because it becomes like metal, and it has a psul there no matter how you turn it. So they said, well, we're accepting it from you. We didn't argue with you. We just didn't understand the reason. So he said, you didn't even ask me for the reason. That seems to indicate that you knew the reason from Rav Nachman, from Rav Huna, but you didn't ask me the reason. So I'm surprised that you would not accept it the way Rav Huna explained it. Now the Gemara wants to bring a proof to Rav Nachman and to Rav Huna that it is puzzle even if it's turned on the side. And that's from a Brisa that says as follows. Here's a list of sukkos that are puzzle. One which is too small. It's not big enough to hold one's head, majority of his body and his table. Or if there's a hole in the wall low down that's big enough for a goat to walk through. Or if it has a board on it, which is 4 tvachim wide, but only 3 of the tvachim are in the sukkah. So Gemara says a board that's 4 tvachim wide, only 3 of them in the sukkah. Why would that be puzzle exactly? It must be that it's turned on its side, and therefore only 3 of the tvachim are acting like a schach. That's to assume that the board's dimensions are 4 tvachim wide one way and 3 tvachim wide the other way. So it's on the 3 tvachim wide edge. 3 Tvachim or less, and still it's possible, must be because of this reason that we view it as a piece of metal, and even if you turn it sideways, it's still possible. Someone says, no, that's not the pshat. The pshat is that it's lying on its 4 Tvachim side, but only 3 of the Tvachim are in the Sukkah. The other tefach sticks out outside the Sukkah. Someone says, if it sticks out outside the Sukkah, why should that be a psul? Should be kosher. The reason is because it's sticking out on the side of the Sukkah that has no wall. It's sticking out of the actual walled-in part of the sukkah, but it's a sukkah that has only 3 walls, and this is on the side that has no wall, and it's sticking past the edges of the walls. And therefore you might say, well, that's outside the sukkah, the last tefach, and it shouldn't be an issue. But no, we do view that as it's included as part of the sukkah. If it would be kosher schach, you would be allowed to sit there. It would be viewed as an extension of the sukkah, and therefore, since it's pasul schach, it does act as a 4. It's all included as if the entire 4 tefach wide board was in the sukkah, and it's all pasul.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.